Texas falling short against TCU in football yet again. Texas volleyball coming up, though, with an impressive sweep over Kansas and Austin. And we'll take a look at the MLB Playoffs. All this and more coming up on College Press Box. Good evening and welcome into another episode of College Press Box. We have a jam-packed half hour of Texas sports coming up. We'll start our show on the gridiron. Coming off a miraculous 63-56 victory over Texas Tech, the Longhorns squared off against a TCU team that fell to Iowa State the week before. TCU, however, was 6-2 against Texas all-time in Big 12 meetings heading into this one, so the Longhorns were looking to break that trend on Saturday. Let's head down to Darrell K. Royal Memorial Stadium for the highlights. Here we go, the Longhorns taking on TCU. We'll start in the first quarter. Darwin Barlow from 1 yard out. He's going to barge in and put TCU up 7-0 with just 4 minutes to go in the first. But Texas would not be deterred. They drive down the field. Ellinger from 5 yards out. He's going to find Jake Smith, who just about gets in the end zone and ties the game up at 7 with 20 seconds to play in the first. But TCU responds. Max Duggan from 5 yards out. He'll punch it in just a minute into the second quarter. 14-7 Horned Frogs. But here comes Texas again. Ellinger going to look. He's going to find Brennan Eagles wide open. Eagles will race in for the score. A 45-yard touchdown. We're tied up at 14. Later on, 17-14. Ellinger looking. But it's a miscommunication between him and Josh Moore. It's picked off by LaKendrick Van Zant. Van Zant's going to return it all the way down to Texas 5. And TCU tacks on a field goal. But the Longhorns answer now down 23-14. This on fourth down. Roshan Johnston's going to fight into the end zone. He'll cut the deficit to 23-21 into the fourth quarter after a big run by Roshan. Ellinger, he's going to find Malcolm Epps in the end zone for a Longhorn touchdown. Texas up 29-26. But again, it's Max Duggan. He finds some room and he's off the races. 26 yards for the score. 33-21 TCU. But again, here's Texas. Keontae Ingram wide open, and he's rumbling down the field, but he doesn't have enough speed to get in the end zone. Tripped up after a 52-yard gain. Down to TCU 1. Ingram going to look to get in. He's denied, and then the ball comes loose, and TCU comes up with a huge fumble recovery, and the Horned Frogs would hold on for the 33-31 upset, a gut-wrenching loss for the Longhorns. Here's Clark Dalton with more on the game.
Victory was within the Texas Longhorns' grasp on Saturday. The win inched away in a 33-31 defeat against TCU, marking Texas' first loss of the season. Several moments highlighted the Horns' skill, talent which drives hopes sky high every year. Those glimpses were wiped away by 12 penalties for 92 yards. Some were questionable, including an illegal man downfield when Christian Jones was mere yards away from the line of scrimmage. This erased a 28-yard gain by Alvante Woodard, dashing the Longhorns' chance at a 5-point lead. This left Texas looking for an explanation.
I don't have a better adjective other than weird feeling down there, and it was difficult to get in a rhythm.
The Longhorns still had a chance at the end of the game. It seemed like Texas would summon fourth quarter magic again after earning their first lead with 10 minutes to go. This time, the comeback wasn't meant to be. Late game mistakes helped the Frogs wiggle away. This week, when it came down to it, the Longhorns beat themselves. Next week, when it comes to facing Oklahoma, they will want to capitalize on their opportunities rather than letting them slip through their fingers. Reporting from Darrell K. Royal Memorial Stadium, I'm Clark Dalton, TSTV Sports.
I want to now welcome Olivia Guzman into the show now to analyze this gut-wrenching loss for Texas. Olivia, TCU had Texas's number for the second straight year in this one. What went wrong for the Longhorns on Saturday?
Several things went wrong to make Texas lose their game. Their run defense, penalties, and some inconsistency on the offense. The TCU run game burned the Longhorns' defense, breaking several tackles and running down their throats. The Longhorns' secondary looked better, making tackles as soon as the ball was caught, but the run defense was still very inconsistent. There were too many penalties against Texas. Some of them you could argue were bad calls by the referees. However, the Longhorns seemed to shoot themselves in the foot with the amount of free yards they gave TCU on penalties alone. Finally, Sam Ehlinger and the offense were too inconsistent. Ehlinger missed some opportunities, not seeing the open receiver. There was poor play calling, and the receivers dropped perfectly placed balls. Overall, the Longhorns did not play at the level they were expected to.
Yeah, for sure, Olivia. It seems like those missed tackles continue to rear their head every year, and the penalties in that game were a huge storyline. But now looking ahead at the Big 12 as a whole, it looks wide open this year. Oklahoma is sitting at 0-2, and then you have some new faces atop the conference with Oklahoma State, Kansas State, and Iowa State all at 2-0. Looking forward now at 1-1, what does this loss mean for the Longhorns' Big 12 hopes?
If the Longhorns want a shot at the Big 12 championship or even the college playoffs, they need to win out from here on. They need to find a way to gel together as a team and be consistent on both offense, defense, and special teams. This loss didn't take away their big title hopes. It just made their road significantly harder to get there.
Definitely, Olivia. Definitely almost no margin for error now for the Longhorns moving forward. But now looking ahead, you mentioned they have a huge rivalry game against Oklahoma next week. The Sooners are 0-2. They're going to be hungry. But what does Texas need to do to win the Red River Showdown?
I've been saying this, but they need to be consistent on all sides of the ball. The offense needs to tighten up and make smarter play calling, and they need to eliminate any turnovers. Special teams needs to make their tackles and not allow any punt return or kickoff returns for touchdowns or significant amounts of yards. And the defense needs to find a way to stop the run game. The Longhorns secondary did look better against TCU than they did Tech, so they are on the right path. However, the defense as a whole needs to work on making their tackles. If the Longhorns bring their best on all sides of the ball, they do have a chance to bring the Golden Hat back to Texas.
Yeah, that's definitely a spot on. You feel like special teams has played a huge role in these first two Big 12 games. We'll see if Texas can get their act together for that huge showdown against Oklahoma. Thank you, Olivia, for joining us. But when we come back, we'll head down to the Frank Irwin Center where Volleyball welcomed number 9 Kansas into town for a doubleheader as they look to stay undefeated. Don't go anywhere. You're watching College Press Box. Welcome back into College Press Box. After beating Oklahoma twice in Norman, Texas welcomed number 9 Kansas into town for a doubleheader in volleyball. After a 3-0 sweep on Thursday, the Longhorns look to follow that up with another victory when the teams squared off against each other for the second time in as many days on Friday night. Let's take a look at the highlights. Here we go. Jarrett Elliott watching on as his Longhorns look to move to 4-0 on the season. We'll start in the first set. Texas up 8-6. Here keeping the ball alive. Kansas keeping it alive, and it's going to be tipped over here by Rachel Langs, but again, the Longhorns get a dig, and then Logan Eggleston with the kill. An absolute fire shot to put the Horns up 9-6. On the next possession, Longhorns now up 17. Jenna Gabriel serving it there. The Kansas keeping it alive. Ayel Nadi's going to tip it over, and the Longhorns not able to get it back across. 17-13 now Kansas. Texas would keep control of this first set now, 24-20. Kansas keeping it alive. Blocked, but again, the Jayhawks keep it alive. They get it back to Texas. And again, it's going to set up nicely for Logan Eggleston, and she'll finish the set off with the tip. Texas takes the first set 25-20, and they go up 1-0 in the game. Now, on to the third set we go. Horns now up 2-0, and up 4-0 in the set. And a big block there. Asia O'Neal said no. Horns now up 5-0. Those blocks, they would have a couple here in this third set. And again, another block. Skylar Fields and Breon Butler rising to deny the Jayhawks. 14-5 Texas. Now match point 24-15. At least McGee going to serve it. It's going to be served up, and Skylar Fields is going to send Kansas back to Lawrence. The Longhorns come up with a 3-0 victory, their second in as many nights, and they move to 4-0 in the year. Certainly an impressive showing against the number 9 team in the nation. I now want to welcome in our volleyball analyst, Justin Morris, to discuss this pair of victories over Kansas. Justin, how big are these two wins considering they came against a team ranked number 9 in the nation?
Yeah, thanks, Adam, for having me on. These two wins against Kansas were huge. Big 12 volleyball is highlighted by Texas and Baylor, but there's some sleeper teams that are just as good, with Kansas being one of those teams. Because of the way scheduling is happening, there are no non-conference games, which Texas has often used to measure up how they are against other teams nationwide. To find multiple top 10 opponents in Kansas and then later in the season, Baylor in the same conference speaks volume of the level of competition of the Big 12. And because Texas was able to get the job done, only dropping one set this past weekend proves that Texas can compete against some of the top teams in the country and is looking to continue to dominate the Big 12.
Yeah, certainly impressive showing for the Longhorns against Kansas. And, you've seen, obviously, the COVID-19 pandemic. It hasn't slowed down the Longhorns at all, as they sit atop the Big 12 standings all alone at 4-0. Justin, kind of what players have you looked at and do you believe have stepped up recently and contributed to this fast start by Texas?
Yeah, there are two that are really sticking out to me. The first is Morgan O'Brien. She's a grad student transfer from Illinois. In one of the games against OU last week, she led the team in digs, and she also led the team in aces this past weekend in one of the two games against Kansas. Even though she just recently joined this Texas squad, she's really gelled well with the rest of the team, and you can tell she's able to step up when she is needed. Another player that's making her presence known on the court is Asia O'Neal. The redshirt sophomore from South Lake Carroll made her presence known last semester and has not stopped since. She showed up and showed out for the OU games with 14 kills in one game and had 6 in one of the Kansas games from this past weekend. She's going to continue to be a threat for this Texas team for quite some time.
Yeah, for sure, Justin. The 4-0 record obviously looks impressive on paper, but, there's still plenty of volleyball still left to be played with 12 more conference games left. With that being said, kind of who are some key assets on this Texas team that are going to help them keep moving forward successfully?
Yeah, well, it's hard to pin it down to just a few, but I'm going to focus on two specifically, and those two are Jenna Gabriel and Logan Eggleston. Jenna Gabriel has the second highest assist percentage in the entire country, and is definitely a consistent key contributor to the Texas offense. Logan Eggleston, she also leads national rankings, having one of the top attacks per set percentages as well as kills per set percentages. She's another menace to any team opposing Texas. Even though they're both juniors, they're undoubtedly the leaders on this Texas team. And although the shortened schedule and season did put a damper on things, I think this did help out Texas in multiple ways because there's only one senior on the team in Ashley Shook, who just announced today her transfer after the season. The shortened season allowed players like Logan Eggleston and Jenna Gabriel to gain experience leading the team, and hopefully things are back to normal next season to where Texas can play a full normal season. By then, Jenna Gabriel, Logan Eggleston, and the rest of the older players on that team will be in their senior year, eager to keep the flow going for Texas and mentor the underclassmen.
Yeah, we saw Eggleston come up with a couple of huge kills in that second Kansas game, and it'll be fun to watch them continue to develop this year and then hopefully prove to be a menace to the other Big 12 teams next year. Thanks, Justin, for joining us. But when we come back, it's time to travel away from the 40 acres as we'll go to the baseball diamond, where Jason Kindander will join us to analyze the MLB Playoffs. We'll be right back here on College Press Box. Welcome back into College Press Box. The baseball playoffs have gotten off to a great start with several great wildcard showdowns and now some mouth-watering clashes in the divisional round on the horizon. I'm now joined by Jason Kindander to take us through some highlights and look ahead to some upcoming matchups in the playoffs. How's it going, Jason?
It's going good. Let's get right into the highlights. So we are going to start in Cleveland. Yankees, Indians, Giovanni Urshela with a long grand slam to deep left center field to put the Yankees on top. In the fourth inning, we will head to the ninth now. Yankees trailing by 1. DJ LeMahieu up the middle for a base hit. The Yankees would win the series in 2 games. Down Wrigley Field, Garrett Cooper of the Marlins with a long home run to left field. Put the fish on top to the ninth now. Brandon Kinsler facing Jason Kipnis, and he gets Kipnis on the high fastball. The Marlins advance now to San Diego. Eric Hosmer puts one in the gap to put the Padres on top over the Cardinals in Game 3. To the ninth, Trevor Rosenthal gets him looking, and the Padres will advance to the NLDS. To Atlanta, Ian Anderson, 6 shutout innings with 9 strikeouts, which would lead the way for Marcelo Zuna in the 8th inning, padding the Braves' lead. They would win the series in 2 games, and the Cincinnati Reds are the first team in Major League history to fail to score a run in a playoff series that lasted more than 1 game. So now we will advance to Division Series week. It is a full week of baseball action as there will be no off days, as Major League Baseball announced a couple weeks back. The Astros and Athletics will play at Dodger Stadium, the Yankees and Rays at Petco Park, while the Braves and Marlins will face off at Minute Maid Park in Houston, and the Padres and Dodgers will battle at Globe Life Park. A couple storylines: the Marlins have never lost a playoff series. Pretty crazy stat. They've only appeared in the playoffs 2 times prior to this year, won the World Series both times. I would say that the chances of that streak extending are slim to none, but everybody loves a good Cinderella. Couple of first-timers here in the postseason. The Rays and Padres have never won the World Series. Both teams have appeared in the World Series. Neither have won, so there's a chance we could see a first-time World Series champion. As I mentioned before, no off days. We are going to go straight to the World Series. Obviously, if a team wins a series in less than 5 games the first series, 7 games the next 2, there will be off days, but should be a really packed month of baseball action. And finally, what everybody wants to hear, there will be fans at the National League Championship Series in Arlington and the World Series also in Arlington. Rob Manfred, the MLB commissioner, announced that there will be around 10,000 fans and an additional 1,000 fans sitting in suites. So should be a very exciting month of baseball action. And as a big baseball fan myself, I wish that the season was a little bit longer, but I can't complain. The playoffs have been exciting to this point, and the excitement's really only beginning.
Well, Jason, it's certainly going to be a sprint to the finish. Thank you for getting us caught up on the MLB playoffs. When we come back, though, we'll take a look at how some former Longhorns are doing in the opening weeks of the NFL season. And we'll also get you caught up on all the other sports currently in season around the 40 acres. Do not go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back in here to College Press Box. Let's take a trip into the NFL to take a look at how some Longhorns have been performing in the opening 4 weeks of the season. We'll start down in Southern California in Los Angeles. Malcolm Brown got off to a hot start for the Rams. He rushed for 79 yards and 2 touchdowns in their 20-17 season opening win over the Dallas Cowboys. However, since he's come down to earth a bit, but in their Week 4 win over the Giants, he did rush for 37 yards on 9 carries, as well as catching 5 passes for 19 yards as the Rams took down the Giants 17-9. In Baltimore, Devin Duvernay, he's only been averaging about a catch per game for the Ravens, but his most impressive moment came last Monday night against the Chiefs as he took a 93-yard kickoff return to the house for a special teams touchdown. Also in Baltimore and also on special teams is Longhorn legend kicker Justin Tucker. Tucker's been perfect through 4 games. He's 8 for 8 on field goals with a long of 47 yards and a perfect 14 for 14 on extra points. It certainly helps to have a reliable kicker like him. Kenny Vaccaro has also gotten off to a good start this year for Tennessee with 22 total tackles, including 3 for loss in his first 3 games. The Titans this weekend did not play due to a COVID-19 outbreak among the team. And lastly, we'll stay in the AFC South and go down to Houston, where the breaking news came out today that Bill O'Brien had been relieved from his job as head coach and GM. For the Texans, defensive end Charles Omenihu, who has gotten off to a good start in his second year in the league, with 2 sacks in the opening 4 games for the Texans. Now over to the soccer pitch. Texas was defeated by number 7 West Virginia on Friday night in Morgantown in a closely contested Big 12 matchup. The Mountaineers struck first on 16 minutes as Jordan Brewster converted a penalty into the bottom left corner. And less than a minute later, the lead was 2 for the Mountaineers. Texas goalkeeper Savannah Madden attempted to deal with a long ball, but West Virginia attacker Lauren Segalia knocked the ball beyond Madison before keeping her cool and finishing into an empty net. Texas responded, though, in the 24th minute. Haley Berg played Julia Grosso in on goal, and Grosso kept her cool and slotted past West Virginia keeper Maddie Murphy to cut the lead to 2-1. Savannah Madden came up with a couple of big saves for the Longhorns through the rest of the match, but the Longhorns offensively could not come out with the big chance they needed to score. The closest they came was on 68 minutes when Grosso hit a shot straight at Mountaineer keeper Maddie Murphy. The 2-1 defeat means Texas falls to 1-3 on the season, while West Virginia improved to 3-1. Now over to the tennis court. The women's tennis team traveled up to Fort Worth this past weekend to compete in the 3-day TCU Invitational. Over the 3 days, the Longhorns went 17-12. The seniors Fernanda Labrana and Marta Perez-Mir, as well as freshmen Charlotte Chavatipon and Malika Rapolo, all went 3-0 in singles play during the weekend. They will next compete in the Texas A&M Invitational October 16th through 18th in College Station. Now over to the golf course. Texas men's golf team was also in action this past week as they traveled to the clubs at Houston Oaks to compete in Big 12 match play. It didn't get off to a great start as they fell to Oklahoma State with 4 defeats and 2 draws in the opening game, but they responded as they took down Kansas with 5-0-1 in the afternoon. On Saturday, the Longhorns kept that momentum going with a 3-2-1 victory over Texas Tech, earning them a place in the third place matchup against Oklahoma on Sunday. However, Texas fell short in this matchup 3-2-1, meaning the Longhorns finished the weekend in 4th place. The Longhorns' next tournament will be in the Maridoe Collegiate Invitation in 2 weeks' time in Carrollton, Texas. Now over to the pool, where men's swimming and diving kicked off their season this past week in the University of Texas men's orange and white meet. The white team came away with a 185-131 victory across the 2-day meet. They did set 6 meet records or tied during the competition as Casper Corbeau set records in the 100-yard and 200-yard breaststroke. Freshman David Johnston set records in the 500-yard and 1,000-yard freestyle. Carson Foster set a meet record in the 200-yard individual medley, and Daniel Kruger tied the meet record in the 50-yard freestyle. Now let's take a look forward to this week and see what Longhorn sports will be in action. On Thursday and Friday, volleyball will take on Iowa State at 7 o'clock, with both of those games being available on the Longhorn Network. Texas women's soccer is also in action as they take on Kansas State at 5 o'clock on Friday, which is also picked up by the Longhorn Network. On Saturday, it's the big one up in Dallas, the Red River Showdown, as the Longhorns take on their rivals Oklahoma in Dallas. They will look for revenge after falling to the Sooners last year. That game will be at 11 o'clock and will be aired live on Fox. And then lastly, on Saturday and Sunday, women's golf will compete in the Betsy Rawls Invitational at the UT Golf Club right here in Austin. And with that, that's all we have for tonight. Remember to check out the best sports debate on the 40 acres on College Crossfire with host Jaxie Pigeon on Wednesday, and wake up to the 1-0 Sports Show on Friday mornings. For all of the analysts and everyone behind the scenes that makes this possible, we thank you for tuning in. I'm Adam Ogburn. Have a great rest of your night.